Welcome to my channel. I'm that Scottish nerd that brings you Pokemon trading card game content as well as gaming videos, so if any of that interests you, be sure to subscribe down below for future videos as I upload multiple times a week. In today's video we have Theme Deck Tuesday, where I analyse and review a theme deck for you and go ahead and have some battles and some fun with it. If you enjoy these videos, be sure to give it a like down below as it really helps out my channel. Let's get into the deck profile. Starting it off with our title Pokemon, who is the star of the deck, we have Zamazenta here. Unfortunately, he only has 120 HP. I would really have loved if it had 130, but this deck is very much focused around big basic attackers and some stage 1 evolutions. So we have two copies of this Zamazenta. It has Guard Press for 2 energy, it does 30 damage, which isn't a huge amount, but we do get the bonus effect of reducing damage by 20 during the following turn. So when our opponent hits into us, say they're also hitting into us for 30, that's going to be reduced down to 10. So this is very good for holding out against our opponent and being very defensive. But if we want to do some bigger damage on the following turn, we can use Power Rush in order to do 120 damage, but we have to flip a coin, and if tails during our next turn, this Pokemon can't attack. So we will be forced to use something like a switch or even a retreat into a different attacker. So while this is good since it has Guard Press, which can be useful for slowing down our opponent's attacks and getting some early damage in, its secondary attack, which does a major amount of damage, unfortunately has that pretty significant downside. So the preferred big basic that I would use in this deck is this Duraludon, which we get 2 copies of. It has Metal Sharpener for 1 energy, does 30 damage as well, so already more efficient than Zamazenta, but we also get to attach a Metal Energy card from our discard pile to one of our Pokemon, so it can even attach it to itself if we want it to. This Duraludon also has 130 HP, which is 10 more than the Zamazenta that we just looked at, and for a total of 3 energy, we get Power Beam for 110 damage. So it is 10 less than Zamazenta, but we don't have any drawbacks. We are able to do 110 damage every single turn. So if we're able to set up 2 Duraludon, then we can keep going between them so that once one gets knocked out, we can put up the next one and start attacking with that. Because 110 damage is pretty much the optimal number that you want to be attacking for in theme deck format to be 2-hitting every Pokemon. And those are the main big basic Pokemon that we have in the deck to start doing some significant damage. But we also have some supporting evolution Pokemon here. Going over to the beginning, we have a Corviknight line. So the evolutions and the basic here, so Rickety is a colourless Pokemon. Its attacks are nothing to write home about, just 10 damage and 30 damage for 2 energy. Going across to the Corvisquire, it's also colourless, so at least we're not being hit for weakness. And for 1 energy it has Pluck, and it does 20 damage, but before you do that damage you discard any tools, which isn't particularly significant in theme decks since there aren't really any tools in any recent theme decks anyway. Certainly in the older theme decks from say 10 years ago there's a couple of tools thrown in, but in these recent ones we don't really have too many tools. And then of course we have the Corviknight. It has 170 HP, which is the highest in the deck. It has Pick, which does 50 damage for 1 energy, which is fairly efficient, but the main attack that we want to focus on here is Iron Wings for 130 damage, 3 energy. But we can choose if we want to discard 2 energy from this Pokemon, and if we do that during our opponent's next turn, we take 100 less damage. So that's really going to cause some problems for our opponent, as we'll be able to hit for that 130, and then on the following turn be able to hit for 50 if it's a Pokemon that has more than 130 HP. Otherwise, we're going to be knocking out all of our opponent's big basics, just like how we've seen Duraludon had 130 HP. We'll be able to knock something like that out and reduce damage, so this is going to guarantee that we survive the following turn. Moving along here, we also have a couple of Ferrothorn and Ferroseed. The Ferroseed isn't particularly useful as it only has Rollout for 10 damage for 1 energy, but the Ferrothorn here certainly is much better, as it has this energy slap attack for 3 energy, does 100 damage, so it's not the best or most efficient, but we do get to move that energy onto our Pokemon on the bench in any way that we like. And this is good for just getting some nice damage in that's very efficient and getting to keep that energy in play rather than having an attack which discards it or stops us from attacking. It allows us to keep the energy, and then on the following turn you can always attach an energy to it again to use that triple smash attack and hopefully flip some heads on the coins. And rounding it off for the Pokemon, we have Ponyard here, has 70 HP, and again, not really any interesting attacks, but we have Bisharp, and for 1 energy we can use Charge Order for 30 plus 30 more for each of our benched Ponyard. Now of course you will have to use a Ponyard to evolve into this Bisharp, but if you have both of your other 2 Ponyard on the bench, you'll be able to do 90 damage for 1 energy, which is certainly respectable in the Theme Deck format. Going on to the trainer cards here, we have a fairly standard trainer lineup for this deck, as you've seen in the past couple of Theme Deck Tuesdays. We have 2 copies of Sonia here, and able to search out Pokemon and energy cards. We have 2 copies of Professor's Research to ditch our hand and draw 7. 2 copies of Pokekids to search out any Pokemon that we want. We have 4 copies of Hop to just draw 3 cards, pretty nice. 2 copies of Dan in order to draw 2 cards and potentially draw 4 cards if we win the rock paper scissors match. And then for the item cards, we have 2 copies of Switch to give us that free movement that we need with the Zamazenta, and because it's a metal deck, many of our Pokemon have a high retreat cost. We also have 2 copies of Potion, going along with the theme of being defensive and reducing damage. So as well as once we've reduced that damage, the damage that we do take, we'll be able to heal it, and it combos very nicely with the Pokemon's attacks, as we said. And we also have 2 copies of Metal Saucer here. This is some great energy acceleration, and it really combos well with the attack that we have on the Duraludon, since we can get a bunch of extra energy into play from our discard pile after one of our Pokemon have been knocked out. And of course we have a whole bunch of metal energy to attack with, 18 metal energy, as is typical with theme decks. Let's get into a couple of matches here and see if we can pull out some wins. We do have some very bad matchups against any kind of fire deck, particularly the Charizard decks, but hopefully we can get some wins and avoid the Charizard decks. If you like this video at any point, be sure to give it a like rating down below, as it really helps out the channel. Alright, starting it off here in our first match, it does look like we're up against one of the Charizard decks, so this is going to be extremely difficult for us to even conceive of winning this matchup, but we can certainly give it a go and try and get some of our Pokemon into play as quickly as possible in the hopes that we can win this. We'll start off with a Great Ball. We do get the Corvisquire, which I'll grab. We can make use of that on the following turn, and we also have a Pokekid we can make use of here. I think we'll let's grab another Ponyard so that we can use the Bisharp that we have in our hand on the following turn. And we'll attach an energy to the active and just hit into this for 10 damage. Nothing particularly significant, but we can try our best here. My opponent draws. They did go first, so they're going to be taking a little bit longer to try and get set up. They do just draw 2 cards, so they don't actually play anything out here. We can evolve into the Corvisquire and Bisharp and start trying to get some knockouts as quickly as possible here. Just trying to decide, I mean, we do 60 with Slicing Blade, that's not going to be a huge amount of damage, so we're going to attach this energy to the Corvisquire so that we can set up the Corviknight at some point. And since we're doing the 60 for 1 energy anyway, there's no point in attaching an additional energy when you're doing the same amount of damage anyway. My opponent really having a rough time here. They're not drawing anything that they want, they're not being able to play anything, and they scoop it up, so looks like my opponent just has a bad draw there. Let's get to another match. Alrighty, let's see what my opponent has in this matchup. Looks like they have the Zeraora deck from the deck box. And we do have a pretty good start here. Unfortunately, we do have to lose the Metal Saucer and Corviknight, but we are starting off with the Zamazenta, so we can start using Guard Press pretty quickly here on the following turn. Once we get this energy into play, we also get a Poniard here, which is pretty nice, and we can get that down, and we'll hold this hand. There's no need to Great Ball just yet, since we can't use it to evolve anything. And if we use it on the following turn, we'll be able to dig one card deeper since we're drawing a card for the start of our turn. My opponent evolves up here into the Dodrio, has some useful attacks, and it also has free retreat. And my opponent used the Liquor to draw 3, and they're attacking into us, which is perfectly reasonable. Now we see here we also got the Pokemon Pokekid and Professor's Research, so we could use either of those. We'll start off with the Pokekid. That's going to let us get any Pokemon that we want. So we'll get the Ferrothorn here and evolve into it. That can be a useful attacker. And we'll also use the Great Ball so that we can get some more Pokemon out, getting the Rickety, so that we can evolve into those Corviknight as quickly as possible. We'll attach to the active and use that Guard Press to get the knockout since Rattata only has 30 HP. And we'll also be reducing damage by 20 on this following turn, making it more difficult for my opponent to deal damage to us. So this Dodrio here has Tri-Attack, but the main attack that you want to use is Accelerating Stab for 90 damage, and then you can't use that attack on the following turn. So luckily we're not knocked out here, but we can attach an additional energy to get the knockout since my opponent only has 100 HP on this Dodrio. So that's exactly what we're going to do, and we can go with Professor's Research to discard our hand and draw a fresh 7 cards, and my opponent scoops it up. I'm going first in this matchup. We start off with the Duraludon, which is certainly a good starting Pokemon, and we can attach an energy to that and pass it over to my opponent. We have the Hop in our starting hand, which is a reasonable supporter to begin the game with, and certainly beginning with the Duraludon is going to allow us to attach energy to it pretty quickly over a course of 3 turns, of course. And it looks like my opponent is playing the Kyogre themed deck, so let's see what they can do and set up here. They have a Call for Family so that they can search out some of their Pokemon and get those into play. But on our side we have the Hop, and we're able to draw into the second Duraludon, which is pretty nice. Attach an energy to the active one, and we'll just hit into this for 30 damage. And we can have a look at this Mew, see what other attacks it has. It has Surprise Fist for 60 plus, and you and your opponent play Rock, Paper, Scissors, and if you win then you do an additional 60 damage. But it looks like here we have to choose a Pokemon to become our active Pokemon, so of course we're just going to switch into our other Duraludon. That is thanks to my opponent using the Fione that they had on their bench. Its ability makes us switch our Pokemon, and then you shuffle the Fione into the deck. So my opponent's just going to pass it over to us since they are not using Call for Family once again. And we can attach to the active so that we can do the 30 damage again. And we'll also make use of Sonia here so that we can get some additional Pokemon into play. Let's go with another Rickety, and we'll also get a Zamazenta here. I think we're just going to hit into this with a Metal Sharpener, doing a 30 damage again, and we can start attaching energy to our active or even our bench Duraludon to get that set up. Just a case of seeing what my opponent has for us, they have a Viridian Forest Stadium, which is going to allow us to search out an energy card from our deck. Very useful. Also combos nicely with the Metal Saucer that we have in our hand, since we'll be able to discard a Metal Energy with the Viridian Forest. So that's what we're going to start off our turn with. Discarding energy to grab another energy. We'll attach one to the active, and we could use Metal Saucer here, but we're also going to be able to attach energy with the attack that we use, so I think holding off on the Metal Saucer to use it at a more opportune moment is going to be more useful. we can certainly use Pokekid to get a Pokemon into play. We'll go and grab ourselves a Corvisquire so that we can evolve into Corviknight once we draw into that. And as I say, we'll use Metal Sharpeners to get the knockout here, 30 damage, and we can attach an energy from our discard pile. We'll just attach it to our benched Duraludon so that it's ready to attack with our Cyclone. Drawing into a switch here is quite useful, so we can get around our Pokemon and have some free movement if we so desire. But my opponent here has the Kyogre coming into play. They have high water, which they can use to attach to water energy from their discard pile, so similar to our Duraludon. And they also have swirling waves, discarding energy from this Pokemon, and it does 130. Now, we do have 130 HP, so that would get a knockout on us, but this Kyogre has 130 HP too, so we won't be able to get the knockout on them, unfortunately, since we're only doing 110 damage. And as a result, I think it will be more optimal if we just let this Duraludon get knocked out, and we can use the Metal Sharpeners to get additional energy into play here. So we'll use Viridian Forest once again to get an energy into the discard pile, and we'll attach an energy to the Zamazenta, make use of Dan so that we can draw some additional cards. Hopefully we can win rock, paper, scissors. Let's see what my opponent chooses. We do get the win on rock, paper, scissors. We also draw into a Great Ball, which is very useful. And see anything useful, we get the Corvisquire, so we can get an additional Corvisquire into play. We'll not bother putting down the Rookidee since we don't really need it at the moment. And we'll just attack with Metal Sharpeners, getting that 30 damage down, and we'll attach the energy onto our Zamazenta here. Now my opponent is going to use that, what was it called? Swirling Waves. They're going to use Swirling Waves to get the knockout on us here, which is perfectly fine because we can get the return knockout on the following turn, and we'll still be ahead in the prize race. And also in terms of energy attachments, we'll be ahead since we can use the Metal Saucer that we have in our hand to recover some of that energy that we just lost there. We'll put our Duraludon in the active and use Metal Saucer, getting that energy onto our Zamazenta. And we can also attach one from hand onto one of our Corvisquire so that we can get ready to use it with our Corvisquire or Corviknight when we get into Corviknight. Now just having a look here, we're going to want to decide what Pokemon we want to attack with. I think attacking with the Zamazenta is going to be more useful here, since we do have Metal Sharpeners on that Duraludon. We're going to want to keep that around as much as possible. So we'll switch into the Zamazenta and attack here for the knockout, doing 120 damage and hoping that we get heads, which we do. So we're able to attack on this following turn, as if we'd got tails we wouldn't be able to attack. So we're in a prime position now, since my opponent is down on energy attachments, and they're going to be putting up this Kyogre, or not Kyogre, Prinplup, but they're going to be looking to get a Kyogre, so that they can use the high water attack in order to attach energy from their discard pile. They'll be looking to do that as quickly as possible. But they do have the Empoleon here, unfortunately. They're able to do 130 damage and discard all energy from this Pokemon. Of course, that's the exact knockout on our Zamazenta, unfortunately. So we'll promote the Corvisquire here, and we're able to draw into the Hop, which is very useful. And we'll put down the Ferrothorn as well as make use of the Viridian Forest so that we can thin out the deck once again. Hopefully give us some better draws off of the Hop. We're able to get into Sonia and some more energy, unfortunately. So if we have a look at the Empoleon, it's weak to lightning rather than metal. And we don't really have any good ways of knocking it out at the moment. So we will have to attack into it multiple times. We could attach here and Drill Peck for 50. It does have 160 HP. So going in with our Zamazenta or Duraludon wouldn't be enough. So we're going to attach to the active here and make use of this drill peck for 50 damage, so that on the following turn we can attack with the Duraludon and hopefully get the knockout that way. This Empoleon also has the recall attack, which allows them to choose an attack from one of the Pokemon's previous evolutions and use it as that attack. The main one that's concerning is the Bubble Hold here. It does 80 damage, but if the defending Pokemon is a basic, then it can't attack during our turn. The reason that's quite problematic is because if we have something like Duraludon or Zamazenta in the active, we're not going to be able to attack with it. And it's just another reason for me to put up our Corvisquire so that they have to hit into that, and then we can use the switch here so that we could switch out. But instead it looks like my opponent is going into the Kyogre. As I mentioned, they're using that high water attack so that they can attach energy onto itself and start powering it up so that they can use its secondary attack, Swirling Waves, to do 130. Luckily for us, we were able to draw into the Corviknight, so we can evolve here and we'll be able to attach to it and get the knockout. We also have the Sonya we can make use of to search our deck for 2 Pokemon. No point in getting energy since we have a Viridian Forest that my opponent put into play, and we can use that to keep searching for energy. Also, no point in putting down the Rookidee since we had to discard a Corviknight, I believe. Or maybe not, but we certainly will have trouble finding the Corviknight, and we only have 2 of them in the deck as well, so there's no point in putting down a third one. But we could put down a Ponyard here for sure, and we'll make use of the... we might as well make use of the Viridian Forest, discarding the Rookidee. We'll get an energy out just so that we can thin the deck and give us the best possible draw, and we'll be able to get the knockout here on this Kyogre, doing exact maths, and I think we will also discard energy. My opponent doesn't really have any attacks that they can use that will be doing enough damage, but if they do, then I think it's going to be best to reduce damage here as well, so we'll do that. Take our third prize card of the match, getting Metal Energy, and my opponent promotes the Empoleon once again here, which has 50 on it, and we'll have to see what they have in store for us. My opponent uses that recall attack, and they're able to use a previous evolution's attack. They're dealing 100 damage to one of our bench Pokemon thanks to the Prinplup here. Its direct dive attack does 100 damage to a benched Pokemon, so they're dealing that to the Duraludon, as they know that that's what I can use to get the knockout here. And it's certainly what I'm going to be using to get the knockout since we have the switch in our hand. First off though, we're going to be using Great Ball so that we can search out our deck once again, and we get the Bisharp that we can evolve into, which is great. Also attaching to the active so that we can use Corvisquire again, and switching into our Duraludon so that we can get the knockout on this Empoleon. And my opponent's really on the back foot here since they are struggling to take prize cards to keep energy into play. They have 4 prize cards remaining against our 2, and they're really just looking to get as many energy in play here as quickly as possible, but since their deck is very slow at attaching energy, they're going to have some trouble doing so. To attach to the bench, and they're able to switch into it. It is a Ambipom here, which they can use Nice Catch to draw 2 cards, and they can also use Bye Bye Throw to discard up to 2 cards from their hand to do 60 damage for each card they discard, which is going to be 120, but even doing 60 is enough to knock out our Duraludon. However, it does only have a 100 HP, so we can get a nice knockout on this and continue to attach energy to our Corviknight. Also discard this Corvisquire so that we can search out some more energy, and we'll just keep our hand. We want to keep our energy in our hand, so we'll get the knockout on this Ambipom with the Duraludon. And since we only have 1 prize card remaining and my opponent has no real attackers, it's going to be very easy for us to close out this game. Even if they get the knockout on our Duraludon, we can close it out with the Corvisquire, or Corviknight even, and we'll get the knockout nice and easily, doing that 130 damage to my opponent. So they do get the knockout there, but we can promote our Corviknight and get the knockout, doing with that 130 damage. My opponent gives us the well played. We don't need to discard any energy because the game's over. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.